The NDP think they've found the boogeyman of sexual harassment living within the United Conservative Party caucus. They haven't, of course, but let me tell you about the creep in the NDP closet that the mainstream media just won't. As Jason Kenney's by-election drew near, Rachel Notley and the NDP trotted out every single desperate smear tactic that they could. According to the NDP, Jason Kenney was going to close down the schools, burn down the hospitals, out all the gay kids. It was all lies, of course, but one NDP smear tactic was especially reprehensible. Now, in 2008, a company owned by UCP House Leader Jason Nixon fired an employee after she complained she was being sexually harassed. That firing resulted in a British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal ruling that awarded the woman $32,000. Here's the rub, though. The woman said she was being harassed by a client that had hired Jason Nixon's job site safety company. And it was indeed harassment, touching, grabbing, sexual overtures. But the harassment did not come from within Nixon's company, and I think that's an important distinction to make. And no one, not even anyone on the left, is saying Nixon participated in any of it. Nixon reportedly actively tried to find a different worksite for the young lady at the center of all this. When the young woman declined to switch job sites, Nixon sought legal advice, complied with the legal advice that he received, terminated the employee, and then offered the employee a severance package. Nixon, according to the woman at the center of all this, said he told her repeatedly it was not his decision to let her go. Nixon, who was only 25 at the time, says he regrets how he handled all of this, admits that he failed this young woman, and says he would have handled it differently now, and I believe him. He is not the monster he is being made out to be. Notley is calling on the United Conservative Party leader, Jason Kenney, to remove Jason Nixon from his role as House Leader. And then Notley also said that if Nixon were House Leader for her NDP, he would be out, fired. Notley said, Mr. Kenney must answer for this. Mr. Nixon was his hand-picked selection to be his political lieutenant, his political spokesperson. So did he know and not care? Now that he does know, what's he going to do about it? Trotting out this Human Rights Tribunal case that is based on bad legal advice is a bunch of opportunistic malarkey, and it's all a bunch of hypocrisy, especially since Rachel Notley hired John Heaney as her chief of staff after Brian Topp left. You might not have heard about John Heaney's transgressions when he was in BC working for the NDP government there in the 1990s. That would have required the mainstream media giving the same amount of scrutiny to the sitting government as it does to the opposition parties and, well, random conservative activists on the internet. In 1995, John Heaney was Assistant Deputy Minister of Government Services in the NDP Harcourt government, and Heaney was reprimanded for being the originator of a sexually charged chain letter that was sent around using the government's computer system. That letter promised, and I'm quoting here, great sex for people who forwarded the letter on. The letter read, "This is no joke, send no money, send copies to people who need to get laid within 96 hours. This is so stupid and so sophomoric. Heaney sent a letter to 10 personal friends, and one of them was a government worker, a woman named Leslie Bolt. Now, Bolt then sent the chain letter to an NDP caucus worker and many other employees. When Bolt sent the letter, she also sent along a note that strongly suggested she was forwarding the email against her better judgment because of pressure from her male superior, namely John Heaney. Other women in the government or the NDP caucus also said that they felt forced to take part in the same email joke. This was a stupid email chain letter. It was inappropriate, sexually charged, and an exhibition of extremely poor judgment by John Heaney. In the grand scheme of things, it really isn't all that bad. It's embarrassing, stupid, and a little bit gross, but it's certainly not criminal. That really doesn't matter, though, because we all know how the NDP would react if they discovered a conservative had abused their email privileges to be an all-around creep show. And my point is that the NDP in BC at the time thought it was bad enough to seriously reprimand Heaney. Should Rachel Notley have known about what John Heaney got up to in his role as deputy minister in BC? Absolutely. It's common practice to vet any political hire and vet them deeply. But there's also another reason why Notley should have and likely did know. The whole incident happened while Rachel Notley was a staffer with the BC NDP. She was there between 1994 and 2002. And the whole incident in question happened in 1995 and caused a government-wide kerfuffle. So Rachel Notley didn't care about lewd, weird, and inappropriate behavior the NDP took action on at the time when she was hiring John Heaney, because John Heaney is her fellow traveler in the socialist movement. John Heaney had the right politics, so he's redeemable, worthy of NDP forgiveness. Luckily, I'm not at a loss of words to speak about this because I have Rachel Notley's own script to use this time. To use Rachel Notley's own words, Ms. Notley must answer for this. Mr. Heaney was her hand-picked selection to be her political lieutenant, her political spokesperson. So did she know and not care? And John Heaney is gone now, back to BC, but it's certainly not because anyone was concerned about his sexism or inappropriate use of government emails. That didn't matter to the NDP, who knew about it before they hired him and knew about it while he worked for them here in Alberta. Heaney went home because the grass suddenly got a lot greener in BC after the NDP government seized power there. Heaney actually committed an act of sexual impropriety in a government workplace. Nixon hired the wrong lawyer and made an error in judgment in letting this employee go. The fake feminists in the NDP that want Nixon fired, his career ruined, and his good name lost forever. And Heaney will remain a power player, a power broker in NDP circles, enjoying the silence of the left-wing fighters for women's rights. And the media will never hold Rachel Notley to account for her own hiring practices. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. Speaking of Rachel Notley, she's rewriting the elections laws in Alberta to silence her political opponents. She's even trying to do it to us here at The Rebel. To get the full story and to sign our petition, go to notleyisabully.ca.